Thank you. We create the future. Someone's been paying attention. Well done. So in order to create the future, of course, you need to have a good grasp of the challenges your business faces, but you also need to have a grasp of the challenges on a broader scale. After 8 long years, of course, so much has changed and developed, and there's a lot to catch up on these developments in the printing and packaging industry. Get ready to be inspired. Our keynote speaker today holds something like a crystal ball in her hands for global economic trends. This isn't because of magic. This is due to her vast experience and very sharp mind. She will give us her unique outsider perspective on the printing and packaging industry. With a career spanning decades, she really is a force in the worlds of academia, in the force of public policy and economics. She was Chief Economic Advisor to the UK's Department for Business Innovation and Skills, and she was also Senior Managing Director at FTI Consulting, to name just a few of her career developments. She is also a prolific author with many books to her name, one including Greekonomics, the Euro Crisis, and Why Politicians Just Don't Get It Right. Sorry to say, Dr. Keller. And this is a topic very close to her heart because she was born in Greece. Quite frankly, I don't know how she does it all, because she also has 5 children. She is visiting professor at the Universities of Birmingham and University College London. And last but not least, she is Chief Economic Advisor at the Centre for Economics and Business Research. Please give a very warm welcome to our keynote speaker, the remarkable Vicky Price. Thank you.
Assuming this works, does it work? I'll stand behind here. This will work. Does it work? I have probably missed. Oh, it's working. I'm not sure which of the students. Is this working? Yeah. Okay. Well, it's very difficult, I was going to say, to live up to that type of introduction. And I'm sorry to have to say, our crystal balls generally don't work. We did not forecast, as economists, the financial crisis. At least most people didn't. We didn't forecast COVID. We didn't forecast the war in Ukraine. We didn't forecast the energy crisis that followed. The central bankers didn't. They didn't expect inflation rates. So when you look at economists, in fact, we are more attacked for getting things wrong than we do get praise for getting things right. So bear with me if you possibly can. The other thing we're pretty bad at doing is forecasting anything. So anyone who was watching the match last night would have known that Düsseldorf looked like it should be easy to go through that, but it didn't. I'm afraid I have lived through that myself many times because I come from a family of very crazy football supporters. We had season ticket holders for Chelsea, and of course we had a terrible time over the last year or two. So you can tell our forecasts are often quite wrong. But of course, we know why our forecasts are wrong as economists. If you asked us, we all believe that you have rational beings, human beings out there. In economics, we are taught that there are rational expectations around, that the consumer behaves in a rational way. And they mostly do, although there was a Nobel Prize winner who did win that Nobel Prize by focusing on irrational expectations. But we say that most people are rational, and if A happens, then B happens, then C happens. And when it doesn't, we blame the politicians, of course, who come in and mess things up. I do apologize for having said anything at all against politicians, but there is a lot of uncertainty that is created right now because of politics. As we all know, there are elections coming up in the US, in Europe, for the European Parliament. We have elections, of course, in the UK. We have seen changes in governments where coalitions have moved around and policies change in a number of countries in Europe. We have had elections, of course, and we're having elections in India, for example. We had, of course, an election in Russia. There's all that. And then, of course, there are all these other things. Like I mentioned, the war, or at least the crisis after that, the war in Ukraine, which is giving us still an awful lot of uncertainty out there. Whatever is happening in Gaza has accentuated the concerns that people feel about the future, whether they should invest or not. And so all these things pile in. Nevertheless, and I think that's the interesting thing, when you look at the forecast which the International Monetary Fund is now putting out, the OECD, which is the Developed World Organization, they're all quite positive, despite all the dangers that are out there. We have seen for businesses the rising costs that was sort of hinted at, the skill shortages that exist and the need to really reskill people as the economies all change and the needs of industry change. And nevertheless, another shipping costs which are going up again because of concerns about what's happening in the Red Sea. And yet the forecasts are a bit more optimistic coming up now about the economy for 2024 and for 2025, the world economy, which is good news based on the fact that inflation is slowing down and you see business confidence improving overall. But very, very fundamentally, and I think it matters for this industry, is that quite a lot of those forecasts are based on an improvement in investment, and of course with investment comes innovation. There is no doubt that the printing industry is very much at the center of this. The real worries that we have all had have been around deglobalization. We have tariffs increasing for a number of products. We have concerns about intellectual property being affected if we export particularly technical goods. So there are sanctions and limits that exist. We've had the problems between the US and China. Now the EU is looking at also perhaps following the example in the US. There are concerns about dumping. There are serious issues post-COVID of onshoring again or reshoring, taking production much closer to home so you don't have some of those trends. But nevertheless, everything that I have seen from the printing industry suggests that the trend, if anything, is in the opposite direction, which is how it should be. Deglobalization is bad for growth. Increasing tariffs really just increases cost to consumers. It so displaces production. You don't get the things being produced or built where they should be, services being transacted across. So the printing industry, to me, seems to be against this trend in many ways. It actually is globalizing actually at a very fast rate, getting around some of those supply chain issues with technology, with AI. So in many ways, it's at the forefront of the type of growth which the OECD, the IMF, and everyone else is hoping is going to come. There was a mention of skills earlier and finding the right people, but there's also the mention of the size of the market. I mean, it's quite interesting that we all thought that books were never going to be read again, that it was all going to be done online, that that type of printing wasn't going to be needed. Well, we know that the opposite is the case. Maybe it's COVID that did it, which is quite interesting. We also thought that the way in which we were always producing things, with the way people worked, was going to be with us forever. Now, of course, post-COVID, we've also got new structures in terms of work and new connections being made across, which also increases, I think, the potential to change, the potential to be more efficient. We've also got, of course, the very big emphasis now on sustainability and net zero. Sustainability really matters. I think what the printing industry is certainly doing and has shown in terms of the way that it's evolving, and it's also shown in terms of the products that it has, that it's contributing very significantly to this push to greater sustainability, and I think that's, again, good news. There is an issue, there was a mention earlier, I'm just thinking again about our crystal balls, of where the markets will be. There is no doubt, if you look at where the forecasts are taking you to, the growth is going to be mainly in the emerging markets, where the middle classes are indeed going to be increasing. As long as we don't put constraints in terms of their growth, or constraints which are just not very easy to meet, They will, of course, include constraints in terms of exporting very highly polluting products, but as long as those constraints are sensible, what we will find is that indeed there will be a growing middle class which is going to be needing all these products that are being produced and more as things develop. What is more, they will contribute to some of that innovation, some of that technological improvement that's going to take place, and the connectivities which are across. It doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to see population growing. There are a number of people who are very worried about the fall in fertility rates and the fact that actually population may, by the middle of this century, start going down. But as long as this middle class is developing, as long as incomes are growing, then I think that's good news. However, we need to adapt to that. In fact, there is a friend of mine whom I'm doing a debate with pretty soon, has written, a demographer has written a book saying, "No one left." It's actually called No One Left. And there is this big worry now that we need to encourage more families to get bigger and so on. But while this is happening, there is no doubt that regions are getting richer, and what they will be doing is requiring that type of approach and the type of products that this sector is developing. Now, you're the experts on the printing industry. Me looking at it from outside and some of those developments, including 3D printing, which I find quite extraordinary. And I have to say, since the Greek mention was made, indeed I was born in Greece, then actually studied in a German school, and then went to university in England. But I have kept my roots, and the big debate right now is with the Parthenon marbles that exist, that have been, the Greeks claim, stolen some time ago, and are in the British Museum, which people come and watch. And there have been big debates and fight about whether they should be returned. And my view had always been, why can't we use 3D printing? We just recreate those marbles in the British Museum, just as they were, continue to have lots of people come, and we take the real ones back home, please, and put them in the Acropolis Museum underneath. This is a very brief campaign slogan, which has the printing industry right at the heart of it all. So I wish you all the best for the next few weeks, and thank you for asking me to speak.